The announcement of Final Fantasy XIV Evercold, the release of Final Fantasy XIV patch 7.5, the release of World of Warcraft Midnight patch 12.0.5, and whatever the heck this is. It's been a busy couple of weeks for World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, so let's take a step back and talk about everything going on. Hello everybody, it's your boy Jmulls, and we have a lot to talk about. Seeing as how I play both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, every now and then I like to just check in with how both games are doing, and I think it's safe to say for World of Warcraft at least, it's reaching a bit of a fever pitch, where it's becoming increasingly clear to a lot of people that the current patch cadence just isn't really sustainable. I've talked about this before, and a lot of people have talked about this. It just seems as if they're not giving themselves enough time to develop each patch, let alone QA each patch. When it comes to patch 12.0.5, the latest one, I funnily enough haven't played too much of the patch, and we'll get into that a little bit later in the video, so I haven't really been affected by the issues, but that doesn't really excuse them. I think it's a reasonable expectation that for a game you pay a subscription cost for, the game should be functioning and just work. When you have to put out a glorified apology just for the overall state of the game and especially the release of a patch, that's not a good look for a company as big as Blizzard and also Microsoft. Like, they had to disable housing at the start of the patch. It just wasn't working. It's like, that's a really bad sign for an expansion's biggest feature, you could argue. That's just not a good look. Speaking of not good looks, let's talk about this monstrosity. So they released some new store things. You have the Springtime Treehouse Exterior Pack, also known as exterior housing that's Keebler Elf focused. And I guess you can also get this Cozy Treehouse Retreat bundle that has those exterior homes and a bunch of other things for 7,500 Hearthsteel, basically 75 bucks, because Hearthsteel is the virtual currency you can see right here. We've talked about this before. Look, egregious pricing aside, like, look at the price of this stuff, man. It's like, that's more than Midnight. That's absurd. But it's also, in my opinion, increasingly harder to actually blame Blizzard here. They are a company. They're under Microsoft, an even larger company. If you put money on the table, of course they're going to pick it up. They're not just going to walk away from it. The only reason they do stuff like this is because they have the confidence that people are going to buy it. They're going to support it. They're going to take one look at this and just say, okay, swipe. Or they'll rationalize it and say, I'm not actually spending real money. I'm buying WoW tokens with in-game gold. Someone else can spend the money. I'm not paying for it. And it doesn't matter to Blizzard because, well, a swipe is a swipe. They don't care who swipes. They just want that swipe. And I think as a paying customer for World of Warcraft, this stuff is like increasingly insulting for a very simple reason. Exterior housing right now is rather limited. We have four main aesthetics that are just in-game: Orc, Human, Night Elf, Blood Elf. I'm fortunate in that Blood Elf is my preferred aesthetic. I already have what I want. There's a lot of people out there that would probably want a Forsaken house, a Dwarf house, a Gnomish house, maybe a Troll house, or a Tauren house, or a Pandaren house, whatever. And they would want the same customization that you get for Human, Orc, Night Elf, Blood Elf. So either they have to get extremely creative with decor pieces, or they're just screwed because development cost and time now goes to, well, creating this crap. Because of course it is. It's way more profitable for Blizzard, almost definitely, releasing something on the store that they know people are going to buy than trying to bolster the in-game content offering. Like, as a business, of course you do this. It's just the easiest layup known to man. But I do think by nature of this stuff existing, people had to create it backstage. Those developers had to make this. And by making this and putting it on the store, they're not making stuff for in-game. That's expanding on the core aesthetics of World of Warcraft. That stuff gets delayed, and by virtue of it getting delayed, if we do end up getting it at all, which I imagine we will just at a later point in time, it makes the game as it is right now worse than what it could be. That's not a good feeling. Will it matter for some people? No, and that's how Blizzard gets away with it. And I think, personally speaking, when you combine this with the story that I personally really dislike, and I dislike the Midnight story the more and more I think about it, and it honestly just ruins a bunch of lore that I really cared about for World of Warcraft for the longest time when it comes to the Blood Elves and the High Elves and all that, just kind of tarnishes this entire sector of the world. And you pair that with a patch that, I'll be honest, I haven't really enjoyed 12.0.5 that much. Decor Duels feels like it was designed by people that never played or knew about Prop Hunt until they were told to make it. It's serviceable, I guess, but it's highly repetitive quickly. And like I said, it really feels like they don't know what Prop Hunt is and what it's all about. Or they couldn't get it to work in World of Warcraft, so we just got whatever the heck Decor Duels ended up being. And like the overworld content, it's there, sure. The biggest disappointment of the patch for me is like ritual sites. They just kind of feel like delves again, but but with a little bit of extra toggleable difficulty. It's like, okay, that's a neat idea. Just right now, it's not really doing it for me. And you combine that with the whole like housing store stuff, and a lot of the elements of World of Warcraft that I have personally enjoyed in recent years are increasingly becoming compromised. What I hope to see from Blizzard going forward, I really hope they slow things down. I don't think they should feel the need to continue on this like 8-week cadence. It's a noble goal. It really is a noble goal to get more content out for the player base quickly, especially as we've covered for a game with a sub cost. I think that's a very noble goal, but it's clear to me they clearly can't keep up. A lot of the times when they put out new content, it just feels lackluster or just unprofessional on how broken and janky everything is. I personally wouldn't mind it if they gave themselves like an extra week or two. Heck, maybe even 3 just to give it some more polish and shine. If not, develop it a little bit more and make it a little bit more interesting. Yeah, telling people that, hey, we're gonna take even longer to get stuff out the door, that's never really a good look in an MMORPG. At some point here, I think you gotta have to like bite the bullet. Funnily enough, kind of the opposite issue that Final Fantasy XIV has had. And we've talked about this weird phenomenon quite a bit on this channel where a lot of the pros and cons of Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft are like the inverse of each other, where Final Fantasy XIV takes, at least throughout Dawn Trail, way too long to get stuff out the door. World of Warcraft just shoves everything out the door prematurely now. But this also kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, that other thing as to why I haven't played too much of 12.0.5. Let's talk Final Fantasy XIV. FanFest came along. I was expecting to be engaged with the story. I was expecting same old when it comes to the gameplay, because Final Fantasy XIV and Square Enix are just not really known for rocking the boat all that much recently when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV's gameplay. Boy, was I wrong though. When it comes to Evercold, it feels like an expansion specifically designed to please me. And I know they didn't do this because it would be delusional to believe so, but it really does feel as if they went through my backlog of critiques with Final Fantasy XIV and just checked every box and just said, oh, he wants more job identity and some changes to job design. Okay, check. Oh, he wants more stuff for the beautiful zones that we create and to give players more of a reason to be out in our gorgeous world. Okay, check. Hey, roulettes are kind of boring. What if we mix those up a bit? Check. A more serious and possibly darker story? Also check. By the way, let's also constantly reference his favorite character. Check. Oh, he also wants more snow zones. Brother, look. It's called Evercold. Now, granted, what they showed for the zones weren't particularly cold, but they're sky islands. That's my favorite aesthetic. Again, it just feels like an expansion specifically targeted to me. And I'm honestly still kind of blown away by everything going on with Final Fantasy XIV right now. It really does feel as if they turned a corner. One of the biggest things I've talked about, because I made a video a while back where I talked about what I think both World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV needs to do for the future. For Final Fantasy XIV, I said it needs to find a way to bring back excitement, to make me excited for not just the main story, but for the gameplay systems the game will have going forward. Evercold is doing that, and it's also doing that for the main story. Now, I say all of this, but funnily enough, 2026, to me, is largely going to be a news year for Final Fantasy XIV because we only have the one patch, 7.5, and they are breaking up into a bunch of like minor patches, like how World of Warcraft is like patch 12.0.5, 12.0.7. Final Fantasy XIV is something kind of similar, where they break up a patch's content offering and release some of that kind of stuff in the more minor patches. So we'll still have things like Beastmaster, the next part in the Occult Crescent, etc. later this year, and some more main story in September, but at this point, it's kind of all eyes on January 2027 for Evercold. I forgot to mention also, because another thing they're trying to improve with Evercold, a quicker content cadence, get patches out the door a little bit faster. Hopefully not to like the point of World of Warcraft, where we have those issues we've already talked about, but Final Fantasy XIV is kind of the opposite end of the spectrum, where things just take too long. Well, for some people, there's going to be some people that still kind of enjoy having all that time. And this is one of the biggest takeaways. It's not that I hate WoW or I hate Final Fantasy XIV. I love both of these games. It's just their strengths and weaknesses, to me, are almost the opposite. And I think for like Dawn Trail, Final Fantasy XIV had quite a few rough patches for me, content-wise. It feels like we're starting to come out the other end of that and into a better future. When it comes to World of Warcraft, I think they do a lot right, but they also mess up quite a bit. I think it's also safe to say that both of these games are clearly learning from one another. I think Preach Gaming said it best. I don't think we get warbands in World of Warcraft Warcraft without Final Fantasy XIV. Obviously, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have like a warband system, but the way you play one character there, some ideas are transferable. And I think right now, personally speaking, I've had more of a desire to play Final Fantasy XIV because I'm just really excited for Evercold. And I played patch 7.5. I love the story that was presented. I have been loving the Alliance Raid series. I probably like it even more than most people that haven't played Final Fantasy XI. Whereas for World of Warcraft right now, it's just kind of disappointment after disappointment after disappointment. And I don't think that will last forever. A lot of the issues that I have with World of Warcraft are addressable. Just tell better stories, slow down, take your time when it comes to releasing patches, and we can go from there. I think those are addressable, but I don't think World of Warcraft has a monetary incentive to address those issues until they hit a breaking point. And I don't know if we're there yet, but I think we're getting close to it. If resentment and just overall disdain for the status quo of patch releases for World of Warcraft continues and that sentiment gets louder and louder, at some point Blizzard will have to do more than just put out an apology. I hope we get to that horizon sooner rather than later. When it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, I'm glad to see that we're actually coming to that horizon that we've been talking about on this channel for a while at this point. We're coming to it. They're addressing a lot of those issues. Now, whether or not they execute on those issues correctly or well remains to be seen. I've liked a lot of what they've talked about. A lot of what they've shown, I'm also a big fan of. When it comes to storytelling, they've been improving drastically over the patches of Dawntrail. There's a clear effort there to make the game better. Having that intention, having that desire, you can feel the hunger from them. That matters. That goes a long way. I think that also exists for World of Warcraft. I just think that putting these restrictions on themselves with this patch cadence that they really can just take themselves off of. It's like that meme of SpongeBob wearing handcuffs, but they're way too large on him and he can easily just get his wrists out of them. It's just a matter of when will World of Warcraft finally pull that trigger, because I think sooner the better. Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft are going to have very interesting years. Will the narrative rebound from 12.0 of Midnight? Will Blizzard finally be able to release a patch that isn't broken? When we get to BlizzCon later this year, how will The Last Titan look? Our return to Northrend after all these years. It could be some really exciting stuff. When it comes to Final Fantasy XIV, when they talk more about Evercold and the various endgame systems and just the overall changes to the game state, how will that look holistically? Will it just amount to a bunch of minor changes here and there, or just the systemic changes the game probably needed to some degree? Time will tell. But you know I'll be here to talk and yap about all of that stuff. And if you want to be here too and join the ride, you should leave a like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out and helps support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. And leave a comment down below with which game that you play and how you're finding the game. What do you want to see stay the same going forward, and what do you want to see change going forward? I'd love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and hear your perspectives. And Final Fantasy XIV just dropped a new patch, patch 7.5, Trail to the Heavens. I played it. It's really crazy. You want to find out more? Check out this video right here. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.